First, can you introduce yourself and who do you work for?
That's Phil Renaud, Director of Engineering Services, London Health Science Centre.
Okay, and what brings you out here today?
I think the opportunity to understand a methodology that the organization can adopt to inform decision making at a senior level, to create a way for sustainable thinking and the environment and consideration for the environment to be included in our decision making, because we're an incredibly large organization.
And how will you apply what you've learned today to your workplace with London Health?
Well, I think I've got some great insights into what possibly could be in the organization. I think I've received some advice and counsel on strategic implementation. So how do I take the natural step and get it in front of the right people at the right time with the right message? How I align my forces at the border so that I can storm senior leadership and get buy-in and get a blessing for this to move forward and to become part of the fabric of the organization. And I think for me that was one of the biggest challenges. You know, we've done a lot of the program work and remedial activity in the organization. We've diverted waste, we've recycled, we've changed the way we do certain things. We've done a lot of those basic activities, but the idea of sustainability and embedding that in the organization and in the strategic planning and that has never been a part of that. So hopefully this will give me the tools to see that thinking embedded in the organization in the future.
Okay, and what attracted you to this course to begin with?
I heard about it through University of Western Ontario. They have a Masters of Environment and Sustainability course that I've had the opportunity to present to before on the things we're doing at the hospital, and have stayed in touch with members of the faculty there. And they invited us to host a student this summer, with the idea being that these students have been trained in the natural step, and were we to host one of them, they would then help us look at doing an assessment of the readiness of the organization and do a lot of the preparatory work for the organization to adopt the natural step. So with that in mind, and having made a commitment that I would have one of these students here, it seemed like a good idea for us to come out and get schooled up a bit so we would at least be on a reasonably level playing field with them when they're in the organization with us.
Well, so far in the course, what's been the highlight for you?
What's been the highlight? Probably the presentations we did this morning would have been the highlight. I mean, highlight, low light. I mean, I enjoy doing presentations. It's part of what I consider fun in my role. But to have one that I had to pull together, what essentially was this morning after watching the hockey game and falling asleep last night, to do it on spur of the moment like that and feel comfortable with the material, I felt really awkward with it. But the feedback that I received from my colleagues at the table and from folks from the natural step has been awesome. I mean, it's really helped raise my level of comfort with it and my sense that, I do have an understanding of it. So for me, that was probably the highlight at this point.
Okay, would you mind talking about some of that feedback that you received?
It was around use of different language, saying things in a different way, and how do you say something and communicate something so that it positions it in a context that the leaders in the organization will understand and adopt. So, use the language that the organization is familiar with, use the language they're comfortable with, use analogies that hit home with the organization. When we talked about the funnel metaphor, and I used the example that, if you look at the funnel metaphor and you take the idea of decreasing funding and increasing patient days and patient activity, that sooner or later our patient days and funding will meet at a point where we no longer have enough funding to offset the patient days, and you become, get into a critical situation. It's coaching around that sort of thing that, this is the way you should present it, and you might want to think about doing this differently. Really positive feedback around what you had done, and then a lot of positive praise about, wow, in a short period of time you've really seem to have grasped the concept, and your passion is visible, and we can see that and sense that.
Okay, is there anything you'd suggest to the natural step to make this course better?
Well, the second day, the afternoon. I mean, it's draggy, and it's not the natural step. It's just the nature of 2-day courses where you're assimilating a lot of information over time. You tend to end up a little bit brain dead, and I don't know what the answer is for that. How to make it more fun, make it more lively, especially when you're working through things and trying to learn. Maybe there's a different strategy of an engagement that we could look at. Maybe there is more opportunity for presentations, live presentations, case studies, always interesting. The fellow from Shambhala was interesting, different perspective completely. And I think probably some of those in the second day would be welcome. How did you, getting organizations that have embraced the natural step and used it as their organization, and where did it go? How many years out are you now, and is it still alive in the organization? The real test of any initiative like this is the test of time. Once you've adopted it, are you able to maintain momentum? And is it really embedded to the point where you don't think about it anymore just as a way of doing business? So it would be great to hear from organizations that have adopted it and how it's worked out for them over time.
And just one more. Would you recommend this course to someone else?
Absolutely. I've requested the Natural Step do a presentation at a conference we host in October to share this with other healthcare leaders to see if we can get more people involved in it. I think colleagues in other organizations that I interact with share the same thing. It's difficult to get senior leadership to